What's up, everybody? Time for yet another week of Q&A Sunday, my favorite video of the week. We've got a bunch of questions from chat as well as the video from last week. If you guys want to be featured in these, two ways you can do it. Number one, stop by the stream, twitch.tv/LAWL stream every day but Tuesday and Sunday. Unless I'm out of town, like this weekend for 2 tournaments. Come hang out with us. Come ask questions. Skip the line. Our streams are pretty much a Q&A all day, every day. The second way, leave a comment down below in the YouTube video. If you see one you like, make sure you guys give it an update, and then we can pull from those, and we try to pick the most liked ones, the ones that create the best conversation. So with that said, we're gonna hop over to the other screen and see what we got. First question is gonna come from Fisher Everin, and says, "Hey Lawler, in the recent weeks there have been a lot of community 2v2 tournaments put on by Hootie and Turf Wars by Rizzo, also Gamers 8 before Worlds. Those events all showcase something other than threes. I don't think RLCS should make another league or any like that for those game modes, because then players really good at them like Appjack, Daniel, etc. would have to choose. Do you think Sonic should run big 1v1 or 2v2 tournaments to showcase the other game modes?" So let me answer that question first. You talk about, hey, we got a bunch of tournaments that were showcased that weren't threes. These all showcase something outside of threes. The issue is I don't think RLCS should do it, right? RLCS shouldn't do this because it conflicts with what their premier product is. All these things I agree upon. But do I think that Psyonix should even run 1v1s or 2v2 tournaments to showcase other game modes? If Psyonix runs those tournaments, then I think that's technically them, just like RLCS, providing a premier product. My opinion is that Psyonix should do what they did a couple years back. And I talked about this in a recent video, is Psyonix gave out like $300,000 in the offseason to multiple tournament organizers, myself included, Lethamir, Dazarin, a bunch of others, to run tournaments. Where Psyonix goes, your trusted TOs, trusted community figures, do your thing. And they provide funding. So while they are not responsible for it, they still get the publicity and the kickback saying that, hey, it's with us. We're supporting it. It's got our seal of approval and it's promoted appropriately. But then they don't have to take the legality side of things. So I think what Psyonix should do is not run any tournaments like that. And they should just enable their community to go crazy. Hey, here's some money. Here's prize pool. Here's funding so you can go and do a thing. Rizzo, go do another 1v1 LAN. Hey, Hootie, make that 2v2 LAN or that 2v2 tournament a 2v2 LAN. Lawler, do that one project that you're talking about with us behind the scenes that you haven't talked to anybody else about. And I'll be like, heck yeah, let's do it. So those types of things, I think, are the way to go about it. But I don't think Psyonix should be running anything else but RLCS, in my personal opinion. They should supply, help fund, and have like a community fund that they put money towards. I think that'd be really cool. Just because I do think having different looks, if we're not going to get any new content, if we're not going to get new game modes, if we're not going to get new maps, if we're not going to get new stuff, like actual content, not just another DLC car, then yeah, I think they should find a way to take some funding and enable their creators or their community figures or their TOs or whatever to build something more special. I think it'd be awesome. Yeah, more is better. The difficulty is with RLCS right now, you only have technically a month and a half to find a time slot to do that in. So you're either doing it without the pros, or if you're including the pros, you have to do it during trade windows, or you have to find a certain way to fill it. It's tough. It's really tough. Great video. Continuing the theme of more teams per international lands, do you think it'll be best to turn one regional per split into a LAN event and have less regionals per split so teams? So I do think this is actually their intention. They've mentioned in the past that they do want to have regionals as LANs. A lot of conflicts though with doing that. Players are 15. They're already missing a ton of school. If you make regionals also a LAN, that means 2 more days of travel, 2 more days away from school, at least. Usually with LANs, people are going to want to get there earlier, and it just makes it more complicated. So that's already a conflict with our age that we have for our pros. That's a problem. But I do think like some tournaments could be LANs or in person. It's just the logistical side of things, plus with trying to find a venue and everything. It's such a pain in the butt. So when they partnered with ESL and DreamHack, a lot of us believed that they had potentials to run DreamHacks and stuff and then do Rocket League events there that were LANs. But I do miss the days of DreamHack, open qualifier, 32 teams sign up. Like, they are arguably the most competitive Rocket League we've ever seen. 32 teams from all over the world. It's bigger than anywhere else. Pretty nuts. So hopefully in the future for sure. What's my Mount Rushmore of RLCS? This question in particular is really tough to answer just because I have to do a bunch of like big thinks on it. I would start by defining what Mount Rushmore is, because a lot of people confuse Mount Rushmore talk with GOAT, or like the most skilled, the most impactful players when it comes to like on the field. And to me, Mount Rushmore, founding fathers, impactful figures means who are the people that made Rocket League what it is today when it comes to the esports scene, I would assume, based upon this channel. So I would talk about people like Cloud Fuel, who without his efforts of like doing organization stuff, RLC, helping, you know, support the like tournament system before Rocket League came around, joining Twitch and helping Twitch with their esports program, still providing Rocket League Twitch Rivals events. Like Cloud Fuel is one of those players. I think Kronovi was one of the faces that really helped popularize the game. His ability early on in the days of streaming, and ironically enough, he couldn't stream without people like Uhtred, who most people have never heard that name. Uhtred was a guy who, out of his own pocket, supplied PCs to numerous pros so they could start streaming and building their brands for themselves. Yeah, I think it's tough. That's definitely like a big think long-term kind of conversation, and trying to have like a roundtable conversation. I think that'd be a fun podcast topic, is where like you bring some gigabrains in the community and be like, hey man, you've got a ton of history in this game. This is the definition of what I mean by Mount Rushmore. This is the clear classification of these are the most impactful people. And you're definitely going to have to pull some old heads like Gibbs and stuff. People that have been around since the OG days, because they're the only ones that know the actual history of like what went into creating the scene. Because without a good foundation and without a good like start, Rocket League doesn't exist. And there's only a select few people that can actually talk about that stuff because they were involved. Like some of the OGs that people have never heard of, like Uhtred, you wouldn't know unless you were involved back in the early days. So it's kind of tough to do. Some of these new people come in, just weren't around back then. So it's good to have some exposure to like the impact that they've had being on the outside looking in at first. But yeah, there's some big ones there. Definitely some big ones there. Kyle Neal asks, hey, keep up the good work. Thank you, sir. Love the content when you do for the scene, but yourself, when do you think NRG need to make a roster change? I think they need refreshing, and Dark Zero regained after not qualifying. Peace. So NRG right now is a team that in the top 16 qualifier did not make it. They ended up dropping into the open qualifiers in the closed qualifier portion of that, and 3-0'd and made it right back in. Right now, I think NRG is right on the cusp of top 8. I think they are right now a team that I would rank in the NA scene anywhere from 7 to 12, depending on how they're feeling, what's going on. Taking an objective look on NRG, I look at their play style and say, hey, you're trying to make some changes, but those changes take time. They are a team that was set a precedent on counterattack, high IQ, really intelligent. What is the best percentage play we can go for here? Don't challenge that, because if I challenge that, it's going to lead to something bad. It's going to put me out of position. It's going to expend my boost. They're just going to clear it anyway. When now it's go, 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 challenge everything, demo, go for fakes, put as much pressure on the field as you can. And that's a tough habit to break when you have conditioned yourself to say, no, don't go for that ball, because if I do, it's just going to kill in their half. I'm going to waste all my boost, and now I'm out of position, and they've got a 3-person counterattack. So again, it's a different mentality, and I think NRG is still building. In the press conference, and I know I've mentioned this before, I've talked about this topic too many times. In the press conference, Garrett talks about how they relied heavily on their own talent. They didn't really have too crazy of a game plan or this and that. They just, natural talent was enough to carry them for a long time. And when they performed poorly in LA at the winter major, it was a kind of a reality check. They had a bit of an argument or a conversation, and it got pretty heated, I guess, talking about things and growing as a team. So that's a lot of veteran talent. It's also the only team that has 3 world champs on it. BDS now as well because of their victory. But going into the world championship, they're the only team with 3 world champs on the roster with a lot of experience. So I think although I'm seeing NRG in the worst position they've ever been throughout their org's history, because they were always top 3, top 2 in NA for a long time, this is the first time that we get to see them try to battle out. Look at Cloud9, look at G2. At one point, they were almost facing relegation. And over time, after denying it because they were still talented enough to beat the teams below them, just like NRG is showing, everybody's hating on NRG and their results, but they're still like a top 8 team in North America, arguably. So despite talent alone, once they figure out the play style side of things, they'll improve. So I don't think they necessarily need a change. And if they do, who do they even pick? I have no idea. I have no idea how they go about that. So I'm curious to see what happens to NRG over the next 2 months, 2.5 months. Winter trade window is going to be pretty crazy. As for Dark Zero, I don't have a whole lot of hope in Dark Zero. If if they start to get more familiarity with each other and start to perform, I still think them making top 8 is kind of a crapshoot. I just personally don't see it, even though they've got the 4-time and a lot of talent on that roster. I see them hovering anywhere from like 12 to 16 personally. Maybe they jump up a little bit here and there, but overall, like 12 to 16 is where I put them. I don't see a whole lot out of Dark Zero. What has been the highlight of my career? Gosh, I think the big moments in my career that I can, like, the checkpoints that I can point to in my career. First RLCS land, the over 0 goal was like a big moment that like truly solidified, like, yo, you're doing what you love, keep doing it. You know, clearly there's a reaction to this. Have fun with it. Casting a world championship grand finals, even though the grand finals world championship calls were terrible because our audio was scuffed and we were yelling the whole time because we couldn't hear our monitors. So that was bad. Our audio was so bad at Amsterdam. Probably season 4, season 5, starting to get into the hang of things, casting E-League. I did not only like professional television work for E-League on TBS, but I also got to do like the grand finals there. I also got to do a bunch of desk work, a bunch of solo work with Machine and stuff. So I think that was pretty big. I hosted my own TV show. I hosted my very own TV show on Sportsnet. That was pretty cool. Working with ESPN and getting a lot of cool opportunities with them. Unfortunately, COVID happened, so that all went to poo. But it was like steps in the right direction. That was a pretty big one. And then some of the more like behind the scenes work I've been doing lately. I've been doing a lot of consulting work, a lot of like producing stuff, more of the things that you guys don't directly see or directly impact. And I've gotten a lot of freedom, and a lot of credit of that goes to actually to version 1. Version 1's enabled me to do a lot of really cool things, both on the business side of things that we don't really need to get into, but learning, constantly learning. Good question though, Flip. Thank you. Speaking of podcasts, any plans on doing one or any interest in being in someone else's? I have no interest in doing podcasts of my own. I have done multiple, and they're very time consuming to structure and do. If I was to do a podcast, I would like to be a guest on it, like a long-standing host, rather than like the forefront of like, you've got to plan the show, you've got to script it out, you've got to control the conversation. It's fun to just go on a podcast, have people ask you questions and just talk. Which there is a chance that I'm doing a podcast with a metal vocalist, one of my most respected metal vocalists in the space, where we talk about metal music, we talk about food, and we talk about video games, and the correlation between music and video games and how the impact is there. So that stuff I think is super cool. That may happen. He's on tour with Lamb of God right now. Shouts to Joe from Fit for an Autopsy. That's my boy. Me and him wanted to do a podcast together. When he was out here a couple weeks ago for a concert, he and I sat down and talked. I'm like, dude, we should bring out other metal vocalists. We should talk video games because it's all you guys do on the tour bus anyway. And eat food and round table it and just have a good time. And he's thinking about doing that. So we might do that. But he's on tour with Lamb of God right now. So I think that ends at the end of October, maybe November. And then he and I got to start talking things. But I think that'd be fun. I like doing podcasts. I like talking with people with good opinions on things and open conversation and learning and educating each other about certain things. And I think those like over the shoulder conversations that people then become privileged to hear are fantastic. I think it's some of the best content out there. Being able to listen to two buddies just shoot the shit and talk, and then have people be able to like that are interested in the topic be able to tune in, I think is awesome. So shout outs to Joe. If you guys don't know Joe Bad from Fit for an Autopsy, phenomenal human being and just incredible at his craft. Gets praised as a vocalist from like Brandon Urie from Panic at a Disco as a metal vocalist. The guy's incredible. And I'm lucky to call him a friend of like 4 or 5 years. So the podcast side, I'll be on any podcast, just about. If I get invited to be on a podcast, I'll usually do it. Whether it be like the Rizzo Scuffcast or Off the Post with like Karma and Kernovi and stuff. Those are fun to do, but they're very time consuming as well. I'm trying to do less and less live content unless it's casting work. Just because like live streaming, as much as I love hanging out with everybody on Twitch right now, it is time consuming. I have to be in this chair to do it. It's the only downfall. And when you're trying to do a bunch of different other projects, time is limited. Time is limited. This is a quick answer. In my last Q&A video, I talked about like my involvement in esports when I was younger. What did I do in StarCraft? So I played for a competitive team in StarCraft Brood War called Legions of something. It was LON. I was like 13. I was competing when I wasn't supposed to. I wasn't allowed to take prize pools, so they had to pay me in like products. So I got like keyboards and mice and like headsets. That's my first like esports winnings when I was a kid. Day of defeat, all that kind of stuff. So my involvement, I was very young and I was playing in like competitive tournaments at a decently high like amateurish level when I first started. And then for League of Legends, I was not in the Bear National Cup. I actually know what that is, but League of Legends, I played Alpha back when like Twisted Fate could ultimate on his E ability every like 7 seconds, Shaco's Deceive Q was like less than the actual cooldown, so you could perma teleport. You could Deceive Q, follow a dude until your cooldown was back up, backstab him, do it again, and just immediately chase them down and backstab crit. It was insane. There's a lot of things that you could do that were super broken. You could stack Sunfire capes. Evelyn was permanent invis. Like, you could do some really dumb team compositions. We used to play threes a lot, and we would do Shaco, Evelyn, and Anivia. So Anivia would wall people off. Evelyn would perma stun with perma invis, and then Shaco would deceive crit so you can get, like, it was just stupid things. Dropping like 30 kills in a 3v3 game that lasted less than 50. It was dumb. So dumb. But I was like a high level diamond player. I was a Shaco one trick mid and like grinded a lot. It's my first, like one of my first YouTube videos is like commentary from when I was in like gold plat climbing. So I went from bronze to platinum in like a season, and then just started one tricking and found my niche and kept going. So yeah, crazy stuff. Last question though is going to be from your boy Skull, who said, thoughts on XSET with Turo. I have this coming out in a video, but I don't really like express my thoughts too heavily on it. Honestly, I think they just need to chill. I don't think you sign players and you commit to a roster, and after one bad result, you immediately go, all right, changing it. So I think they just need to chill. My brain says if you're making a change that quickly, something's going on. There's something happening internally that either Evo wants out or something's going on to where they need to bring in a new player. I think there's a bigger picture to that story, and I think it could revolve around a certain player. And I don't want to point fingers or anything, but there seems to be a common occurrence. And I don't know if that's the case or not. I don't know the details. Don't know them personally to make those assumptions. But based upon what I'm seeing on the outside, I feel like there's some things going on, and either Evo wants out or that circumstance is not it. And I already look at that team roster and I see there's a lot of potential with it, but I think it's too much of the same in certain circumstances. I don't know if there's like some overlap or what, but the benefit is because they have no points because they've gotten bodied by every single team except for the European team. So Rapid's at least living up to his promise, but they have gotten smacked and have not done well. And everybody's like, well, you can't just change. And I'm like, well, they can. The trade window is only there for teams that want to retain their points. And if you have no points, swap as much as you want. As for Turo in particular, I think he adds some stability to that team. There was a ton of double commits in the tournament that they did, but that's just, I think, Rapid does some interesting things with the rotation. It kind of reminds me of like Jacob on NRG back in the day, where Jacob just wouldn't rotate past midfield. He'd always cut rotation, stick on offense, which forced Garrett to play a bunch of defense. And I do think as long as that's communicated, I think...
Unfortunately, Lawler got hit with the Twitch special. The last part got muted. Sag.